Like, I never would have imagined where I am right now because of the blocks that I had so long ago and just not believing that I could do it. But it's like these slow kind of like experiments or just like pulling away of what I thought was true or for me. And so now I'm to this place where, I don't know what's going to happen within the next year, but I know I can figure it out. I know that, like, with everything that I've been through, that I have the wisdom, the expertise, the experience, that I can figure out what's next. I've been through harder things in my life.
Welcome to In Her Words. This podcast is for women navigating through change, career, identity, motherhood, and just figuring out what's next. I'm Roberta Dombrowski, host of In Her Words and founder of Learn Mindfully. Each episode, I sit down with women who are asking big questions, navigating transitions, and trying to make sense of life as it shifts. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need space to be real. Let's get into it.
With me today is a previous guest of the In Her Words podcast, my dear friend and coaching colleague, Amy Santee. And today we're flipping the script. She's actually going to interview me, and I'm going to act as a guest today. I'm so excited and thrilled. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. And thanks for asking me to do this. I haven't done a podcast as a host or interviewer in quite some time since I ended my previous show. So it's nice to be back in this seat. And I know that I and everyone else who listens to your show, we really want to hear your story. You're always speaking with all these great women, sharing their stories, asking them to share their insights about careers and leadership. And I think it's your turn now.
Oh, thank you. No one I would have had do it other than you. I'm very excited.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. One of the big themes that you've explored on your show has been career and leadership journeys and transitions. And these days, women's career paths can be quite varied based on different life events, evolving interests, skills growth, workplace dynamics, whether good or not so good, serendipity, right? You just kind of stumble into things and you have other unexpected twists and turns. And I think more of us than not have made or will make a career transition or two at some point in our lives. I know I certainly have and will be in the future as well. And sometimes that's out of choice and sometimes it's by necessity. And you and I have both seen this with many of the women we've worked with as coaches too. So I want to talk more about some of the twists and turns you've experienced. But to start, I'd love for you to walk us through the story of Roberta.
Ooh. Yes. Well, yeah, so I grew up in Buffalo, New York, transracial adoptee. I was actually born in Colombia, grew up in Buffalo. Did not, like, it's wintertime right now, did not do winter sports or anything like that. I was always, it's funny that I talk about coaching because I was always the person who was holding space for others around me. Like, I was always a deep listener as a kid. I was very artistic. I always had a camera on me during high school. And I actually started undergrad in biomedical photography.
Oh,
So,
wow. I bet you have some interesting photos.
yeah, I do. I do. Yes. And yeah, like biomedical photography, there's like, if you think about science textbooks and like photos of like cells and stuff like that, that's really one part of it. There's like macro photography, microscopy, which is microscope. And then I was like, I'm going to be a forensic photographer because I loved like watching forensic files and stuff like that as a kid. It was so weird. But I had this like defining moment in undergrad. It was second year. They actually had us shooting pine cones. And it was like, pine cones are really hard to light and everything. And we were doing them in the microscope and everything. And I had this moment, which at the time I didn't know now, but I can connect back to it. I was like freaking out. I was like, I cannot be in a lab all day taking photos of pine cones. I need to be around people and like talking. And now I understand exactly what that moment meant because I'm like a coach and I need to like interact and be with people. But that was kind of like my first transition. I finished undergrad in media arts and technology. And then one of the things that showed up for me during undergrad, I was always someone who wore like multiple hats and roles while I was going through school because I needed to have money and income. And so I worked in disability services, which was really meaningful to me. And then I also took a job. It was called in supplemental instruction, but I was basically being a mentor coach to first year photography students. So I would hold like study group sessions and stuff like that. And then I also took a instructional technology class at the time and just fell in love with like instructional design. And when I graduated, I was looking for a job. I grew up in Western New York my whole life and somehow landed into Boston. And yeah, I've been here for, oh God, 15 years since. Why? I've bounced between here and Providence, Rhode Island. But those are like, when I think back to even undergrad, it's really interesting now because I feel like my values really came out in that environment. Like the creativity, the people, the instructional design. Like I loved teaching at that time. And they've been kind of these webs that have followed me to where I am now. So, yeah, I can go deeper. I can go deeper.
Well, no, that makes sense. Like a lot of our our experiences growing up really shape who we are in so many ways. And whether those are challenging experiences, positive ones, people, the things that we are able just to do in our day to day, the topics that resonate with us as students, teachers we have, all of that kind of affects us and starts to lay the foundation of our core values. And as we move forward, whether we realize it or not, we're making decisions about our paths, our lives, our careers based on trying to live out some set of core values. It's helpful when you think more clearly about what those things are. You don't always do that when you're younger. You kind of just do your life.
Yeah. I think also like a key theme too earlier on in my career is I listened to my parents. Like I was definitely codependent, enmeshed in my family unit. And my mom would always talk about, go to school, stability, like you get the paycheck, benefits, all of that. I understand where she's coming from now because that's where I am in my life. But I definitely listened and followed a path. It was about achieving and climbing the ladder and getting all this recognition. And now I realize that the values that I hold were different than the values that were instilled in me. I always had this like inner conflict because I would be told this one thing and then ADHD, like first gen college student, I'm like, no, I want to be creative and I want to do things for myself and millennial, like I want to love my work and
And you want to get star stickers for your
yeah.
work.
My mom was like, what do you mean love your work? Like my family is very blue collar. My dad's a machinist. My mom worked at the post office her whole life. So they're like, no, like you don't need to be happy. You just need to get a job
Just
and
pay
pay
your
the bills.
bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that an actual conversation that you recall, like when she made a comment or asked you something like, why is that important to you? Do you remember what you said to
Oh,
her?
I never got why was that important to you? That would be a curious inquiry. I gotta, it was a lot of the time it was like, no, you can't do that. My dream in high school was I actually applied to the Art Institute of Chicago for photography, and I love Chicago. Like to this day, like I can close my eyes and see myself there. Like I'm a 20 something. Obviously, life is different now, but that's where I wanted to go at the time. And there was this real, I remember this conversation with my mom. She was like, you cannot make a living as an artist, like as a creative, like it's not going to pay the bills. And I think that is a root to a lot of blocks that I have now, even around like building my own business and stuff like that. It's unfortunately, I think a lot of us have internalized beliefs that we inherit from our family systems and it follows us. So it's still there, but I'm able to kind of check it as it comes up now.
That's
And I
good.
don't let
Yeah.
it stop me from doing things. So,
Yeah. Well, you know that about yourself and you know that it might come up as like a inner voice or an inner kind of saboteur, kind of like second nature almost. But then when you keep it in check, you can go, that voice is speaking up for some reason, but I'm going to keep it in check and remind myself of what it is I care about. And yeah, that's
yes.
great. How early on did you really start to think about the kind of life you wanted to live and how your career would correspond with that?
It's varied. I think like so in full transparency, I think like my 20s was a lot of CPTSD. So complex PSD, I was achieving, I was working and not slowing down. I was like running away from my family environment growing up and just focused on achieving and not relaxing. I think that when I hit my late 20s, really probably when I was a VP level at user interviews, I was VP of research, and I was showing up and then I was doing coaching training certification on the side. And I just realized I had this like cognitive dissonance. I would like show up for my role, VP, everyone's super happy. And we'd be in these rooms with like spreadsheets talking about like, oh, we need to grow 2x and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, like we're architecting the next 3 years on a spreadsheet. Like I'm dying, right? And then I would have coaching in the evenings, and it would be absolutely fantastic. I'd be holding space, we'd be exploring. Like, I'd even have weekend intensives for the training program that I was doing, and I was like, I want more of that. It was just like my energy was so different. And then I was working with my own coach at the time, and that was probably the first time I really did like a values deep dive with someone. And I was like, oh, like this is the reason why I've always gotten into arguments with my family about why something's important to me and different to them. And like, it was just like a full circle of moment. I could see the thread throughout my entire career and everything. So I think that was like a huge moment for me. And it's so funny because like user interviews got acquired like beginning of this month, and I was going through the acquisition paperwork as someone who had like shares in the company, and I saw the spreadsheet. I thought I saw the spreadsheet that I spent so many years as a VP, and I was like, oh God, I still hate this. Like, thank God.
Well, spreadsheets are definitely one way of looking at things, a
Yeah.
very two-dimensional, flat, non-human sort of way.
Yes.
I suppose you can get creative with growing a business, but I can see the contrast you're describing of that type of work environment, role, and what kind of emotions or energy that caused for you or didn't cause, right? And then
Yeah.
contrasting it with this other work of coaching, being around people, holding space, and your own growth
Yeah.
work and the kind of energy that would give you. So you
Yeah.
mentioned core values, and until we sit down to define those, we might not actually know like what are the words and what are the specific definitions, like how do I want to operationalize those and use them as a lens for thinking about the past, looking at past decisions, but also looking forward or examining our current life. Once you went through that process, did you start to more intentionally use core values as a lens?
Yes. And I'd say now too, like even so that time would have been 4 years ago at this point. And I'd say like I just had a son a year ago. My values have shifted with that. And so that's a different lens now that I have. Maybe stability is a little bit higher than like my 20s when I was jumping from job to job and stuff like that. But absolutely, I would say one of the biggest ahas when I went through the activity was I noticed the cognitive dissonance, the disconnect, and very quickly my dad in the fall of 2022 had heart failure for the second time. And so like I had to fly home, emergency flight. I got a call like he may not make it like the next few hours. And I was VP at the time, and I came back from that trip like he is fine, he's good now, but I was just like I need to get the fuck out of here. Like I need to get out of this startup. And I fully kind of leapt into my core values of learning, experimentation, coaching. It was a super scary moment. Like I had a really great career at that point. Like I was Series A VP startup. We just got Series B funding and I was leaving. Like, it was a time I could have doubled my team, but I was just like, "No, this isn't it anymore." And I think that, like, since that moment, there's definitely been times when I'm like, "Oh, shit, what did I do?" Like, I took this leap, I followed my core values. Did I mess up? Did I not? Like, there's times of kind of the imposter syndrome, the voice comes up, but I am always happy on a daily basis of choosing my values over everything else.
Do you feel that it's become more second nature for you to reflect on and like just integrate, or I don't know, again, use them as a decision tool or framework? Like is it just more part of how you are now, or do you actually sit down and like go through a process or
I probably haven't done like a full process in a while, But I do sit down. I have a few activities that I actually do on a like similar basis. One is like values. I'll do like a wheel exercise as well, where I kind of rate different components of my life based on the wheel. And then the other one is it's an ideal, I call it an ideal work profile. And basically it's I list out what are my ideals when it comes to work. It could be salary, collaborators who I'm working with, etc. And I revisit that. I've revisited that since my son was born because like I planned for postpartum and then I came out of postpartum and I was like, this doesn't matter anymore. I'm blowing things up. And so yeah, I do come back to it a lot. I remember like it's so funny that we're talking about this because there's been a few times when my core values have showed up, but I didn't know that's what was it at the time. A few years ago, I want to say 2020, I was working at a higher ed tech company. I was running the research team there and I was offered a adjunct role in a university, and so I did what I was supposed to do. I went to HR and I was like, "Hey, I was offered to teach like one class a week." And they told me no. They said no, absolutely not. But then I found out other people on the team were teaching adjunct, and I was like, "Why are they allowed to teach but I'm not allowed to teach?" And I got so upset about it because it was an ed tech company, and I'm like, "You say your core value is learning and community, but you're not letting me do this stuff." I actually left. I like had like I was just like it was my dream role and I was just like I can't stay here. And I left like very abruptly at the time. But looking back on it, I know now it's because it was a values conflict. It was like they're saying their values are XYZ, which are also my values, but they're not letting me honor it in this place. And it's not actually a lived value for them. It's like an aspirational value that they're saying the company cares about. And I was like, I just need to get the fuck out of here. Like, I can't do this. And I
Yeah,
left.
there was too much tension there with how
Yeah.
you wanted to, I mean, your autonomy to make personal choices about how you
Yes.
spend your time and how you enact your expertise as a professional and be creative. Like it was dishonoring those, but also to be in a context where, yeah, a company says it cares about one thing, but actually behaves in another way. That there's a term for that, which is the implicit values versus the explicit values or the stated values. And I think it's pretty easy to say that a lot of companies are hypocritical in that way, especially these days. You know, you want to attract people to work at a place, but then when they get there, it's like, oh, I thought we were allowed to be brave and share our opinions on stuff. Oh, maybe not. Or, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Would you have made the same decision thinking back now, or would you have made the decision in a different way, approached it differently?
It's funny because I think about it often because I feel like that's an inflection point for me. I think that maybe I would have gone about it in a different way. Like some days I think about it, I'm like, oh, I should have just took the job and like not like done adjuncting and not tell them about it. But I feel like it would have happened anyways. I would have been like, nah, you guys are like doing this policy and like not letting me honor it.
Something else would have,
Yeah,
yeah.
it would have played out in the same way. It would have been the same outcome for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all have those times, especially when we're in our 20s, 30s. We look back and on these decisions. And I mean, I won't go into details, but I do have one where honestly, I wish I would have rage quit.
That was my rage quit.
You
Yeah.
know, I was like, I got to do the 2 weeks notice and I got to, be finish my projects. I should have just bailed
Yep.
and like threw stuff everywhere. Like that's my fantasy, but oh well, I'm here
I've done
now.
a lot of those. So yeah, I've done a lot of rage quits.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious if you can share a little bit more about the evolution of your career and any other ways that you have like thought about making these decisions, maybe going through different sorts of events. You mentioned having a child. I know you've gone through layoffs, role changes. Yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, there's I want to say there's like 3 or 4. So let me write these down so that I can remember. The first one, so I started my career after I finished undergrad. I went into work for a tech company in Boston. I was doing like help desk support. And then I moved into instructional design because I decided that I didn't like being like reactive to people and having them complain. I wanted to be proactive and like get ahead of the problem. I ended up doing instructional design as my role for 6 years. And one of the companies I stayed at the longest was, it's called the Predictive Index. They do like behavioral assessments similar to Myers-Briggs. I loved it there because I had a playground that I was like, I didn't get a lot of micromanaging. I had a playground. I could sharpen my expertise. It was a learning role, learning environment. It was before 2020, so I was like ahead of the times with like online learning and stuff like that. It was just very like in my wheelhouse. By the end of my time there, because it was like 3.5 years, I was feeling like this isn't the place anymore. I want to transition, but I didn't know to what. Like, I was not really thinking ahead of it. And I worked with product managers at the time because the products that I was working on were learning. It was learning workshops. Learning was being sold as a product or service. And everyone is telling me, like, oh my God, you'd make an excellent product manager. And so that's what I did, right? I went to a company called Pluralsight and I became a product manager. But I knew something was like off when I made the transition. I was feeling really nervous. I had a lot of anxiety. I accepted the role. I did the interview process. And then I was leaving my house to go for like a pre-meeting before I started to meet like my whole team. And I was walking down the stairs of my house where we lived at the time, and I fell down the stairs and I broke my
Oh
ankle.
no.
Yeah. I broke my ankle and I had to get 2 surgeries. I couldn't walk for like 6 months, maybe. But it's like, I often describe this process, even when I was talking about like user interviews, very brain based, very cognitive, like neck up. And that's how I was the day that I fell down the stairs. It was very like neck up. I wasn't
Mm.
like embodied in my space. I was thinking so much about like, how will I be received? What will people think of me? Like, oh, is my outfit good? Like, nobody gives a shit about your outfit, Roberta. Like, what are you doing? And so that I think was a huge defining moment in my life. It happened almost 10 years ago at this point. But it was a force like, Roberta, you need to slow down. The universe is telling me to slow down. I could not walk. I was on an e-scooter. I had 2 surgeries. I had to start fully remotely with my team before 2020. And I hated product management, I learned. I hated it. And I left that role. I did learn a lot there. I learned that I won't say I hated all of it. I learned a lot. The company I went into had a really big like continuous discovery. It was very much like product discovery culture. And I discovered that what I loved doing was like talking to customers and like leading discovery, doing user testing, all of that. And so that led me to user research, where I specialized for like 6, 7 years. And I went into edX, so a higher ed company. I was there for a year. And then I took some time off after I rage quit. And then I joined user interviews. So, and I was there for about 2 years, 2+ years. And that's what was like, I talk about kind of the ascension. Like, it's like, it was in a very short period of time I made these transitions. I was product manager, user research manager, and then VP of research. Like, it was within a 4-year span
Yeah,
of
that's
all
quick.
those roles. It's very quick. And made it to this role where I was like, it was at a research company. I didn't have to defend my work or do anything. It was ideal. And I lasted for 2 years because I woke up. I woke up just like, I became embodied. I listened to my body. I noticed the tension. And then I made what I call my third kind of shift at that point. Went to coaching. I call it like returning back to my roots when it comes to my career, because I'm back in L&D and coaching and stuff like that. And so I have my own practice now. And then I am going through my fourth transition. I'm going to school for mental health counseling now. So
Nice.
yeah,
You
yeah.
heard it here first, folks. That's
Yes.
yeah, what an interesting journey. I mean, the way you laid it out, it all makes sense. It all makes
Yeah.
sense because it's all related, but it makes sense because some of the situations you found yourself in were because people suggested you explore an area. And then it also makes sense that you were starting to reflect and have your own insights and get more in sync with your heart and your body and your brain, all of those components to make your own decisions about what direction to go in and when to make a change. And I think that happens to all of us where maybe we think we should go do something and we try it and we realize it's not good. And I don't know, some of us make a change quickly. Some of us stay for a while until we're able to have enough realizations to go, okay, I do need to do something different.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have like conversations with my therapist about this where my biggest kind of block with going independent for a long time, because I grew up blue collar family, the narrative I was saying about you need benefits, stability, all of that. That was my biggest block for going independent. I was like, what's the health insurance? What's that? And it's like slowly over what feels like the last 4 years, the universe is just like, ha, you think you're going to go back to full-time work? Let me like pull the rug. Ha, you think you're going to do this? Let me pull this. And so now I'm at this point where I'm just like, all right, I have a son. I have my own business and now I'm going back to grad school. Like I never would have imagined where I am right now because of the blocks that I had so long ago and just not believing that I could do it. But it's like these slow kind of like experiments or just like pulling away of what I thought was true or for me. And so now I'm to this place where, I don't know what's going to happen within the next year or like me and you talk a lot about like leads for our businesses. I'm at the point where it's like, no, I don't know like who my clients are going to be in a few weeks or a few months, but I know I can figure it out. I know that like with everything that I've been through, that I have the wisdom, the expertise, the experience that I can figure out what's next. I've been through harder things in my life.
That is such a great way to look at it. You don't know the answer, but you trust yourself and you have plenty of evidence that you can figure this out. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean there's not going to be struggles or risks, right? And I think these days, gosh, there's seems like there's even more instability, uncertainty, chaos with everything going on in the world. A lot of change in the world of work at the socio-political level. And it's hard to look at all of these things and know exactly what to do, right? We have to take some risks.
Yeah. I think also like when the world's on fire, there's a lot of uncertainty and makes us question. It makes us think about like, is this the right thing? It makes us question about what's next for us. It's hard to have hope too. Vivian Castillo talks a lot about like hopelessness within work and stuff like that. But I think that in the uncertainty, there's when you feel hope, when you feel inspired, it's like I want to run towards that. That tells me what my next step is, the thing that I'm excited about, curious about, because there is such a like shit storm around us at all times. So,
Yes, it's true. Yeah, the hopefulness is really important for all of the things going on right now, but believing in yourself and having anchoring in the hope that even though it might be hard or it might take a while, you'll figure out what to do next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how did you land on counseling then?
It's very related to coaching. In my coaching practice, a lot of the times I work with women, folks in tech. They're going through things like workplace trauma. A lot of their beliefs around, like, I have some people who come, they're burned out because they're over functioning, they're working a ton. And when we get down into their mindset, it's because of a way that they grew up or a belief that they got from their parents around work. And so that's when we start to go into the history. It becomes more about kind of therapy and counseling. And it's funny, I was talking to my own therapist about it. Like, here's everything I hate about coaching, the industry, and all this stuff. And here's what I want to do. And she was like, you should take a look at this one program. And I did. And I was just like, oh, this is the program that I'm describing I want. Like, even if I didn't get licensed and become an independent therapist, literally the classes are everything that I would want to do for like professional development for my coaching practice. That's
What sort of
how
thing?
aligned. There's this class on ethics, issues, and policies that it's like funny. It's like sounds like the boringest class ever to most people. I told my husband, he's like, oh, and I'm just like, no, this is great. Like it's talking about ethics and issues as you're getting into counseling sessions with clients and like just like laws and things to adhere by and when to report things or if someone's going to be of harm to themselves or somebody else. And I'm like, yes, please, like give me all these things. There's also like a developmental psychology class that I'm taking this semester, which when my son was born, he's a year now. I remember talking to my husband. I'm like, I just want to get like a psychology textbook that talks about human development so I know what's going on in my son, like as it's happening. And now I'm going to be taking that class. So
Perfect
it's
timing.
like, yeah, it's just like it's like I feel like my nerd is coming back out again, which is great. Like I'm a huge nerd, but I feel like what corporate kind of took away from me a lot of the time is that curiosity, that nerdiness, because it's about extractive capitalism and all this stuff. And now I'm like, no, I get to learn and focus on things that actually intrigue me and give back and do good. So I'm feeling very hopeful again, which is exciting.
Good, good. Yeah, the learning, I mean, as researchers working in businesses of different kinds, product managers, as you mentioned, coaches, therapists, those are very learning heavy, like
Yes.
learning centric roles. They're human
Yes.
centric roles. They're creative roles to one extent or another. And as someone who also values learning and creativity, this path or these different things you've tried out really does make sense. And you mentioned something very interesting a few minutes ago about how you and also the people you work with, some of them are finding themselves going through really challenging workplace situations, toxic work environments, abusive work environments, and how that can surface or trigger things that have taken place earlier in people's lives. And what I really believe is that traditional corporations, hierarchical companies that are very top down, those are very authoritarian, and they're actually like kind of a replica or parallel to authoritarian environments in childhood, abusive environments in childhood. And so if you have people who have experienced that kind of thing in their lives, they're going to be like the perfect worker because they're not going to say no. They're going to burn themselves out. They're going to want to do a good job, get that promotion, be a good worker, show up, especially these
No
days too.
boundaries.
No
Yeah.
boundaries. Yep. And with all the layoffs happening and the precarity of tech work, for example, and other work too, it's like, gosh, I have to do it even more because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. And
Yep.
that makes us sick. That makes us really unhealthy. It can burn us out. It can put us back into those moments of trauma, in our past years. So yeah, so it kind of comes full circle and takes advantage
Yeah.
of that, really.
Yeah, I always say that work is the only acceptable form of addiction in society. And addictions usually help us escape the feelings that we have, the things that we're feeling. And we're rewarded at work. We're rewarded for not having boundaries, for working a ton of hours. You put in the effort. Exactly what we're talking about is exactly what I went through. It's like I was going through, I went really high on the ladder very quickly, and I was ignoring my body and how I was feeling in service of this organization that, like, these organizations were taking advantage of it. And I have a lot of clients now who are going through the exact same thing, and they're having a waking up moment, I think, with the layoffs. I hear a lot from people of just like, I did everything right, I followed the rules, and I still got laid off. And now I'm seeing a little bit more rebelliousness, which I love coming from people. And they're like,
Quiet
fuck
quitting.
it, fuck the system. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. And some people have more, I don't know, privilege or ability than others
Yeah.
to fuck off or care less or whatever. And I know that's not easy for some people, but I think you're right. People are realizing more just how messed up all of this is and how we are just led to these careers and jobs as though it's, the path to take, but things have changed so much in the past few years where it's no longer stable to work in tech. It's more toxic. People have more of an understanding that the culture of the organizations they're in are actually not safe or healthy. And I know you said, oh yeah, if you do all the things right, then you'll be rewarded. But even then, it's like often a dangling a carrot in front of you for a million years. And maybe you never get that promotion. Maybe you never get that raise. Yeah.
Yeah. By the time I left tech, a big thing that pissed me off and still does to this day, and it's also a triggering thing for me as someone who's an adoptee, is I had a CEO actually say to me, like, no, you need to prove your worth. You need to prove like the job here. And I was like, no, I don't. I need like, I was just like, I'm done. And I remember one time my boss at this company at a startup a few years ago, he like called me on my phone because, can't track cell phone calls. If it was like a Zoom meeting, we'd have a transcript. But he called me in the middle of the day and he was just like, hey, can you do like a customer call at like 8 p.m. or 2 a.m.? And I was like, no. And he actually asked me why not. He was like, well, why not? What else are you doing? And I was just like, sleeping. Like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
sleeping then. And then I got laid off like a week later, which I
Oh,
think
I wonder
like
why.
it's like I failed the test, but I was also 10 weeks pregnant and like literally dying because I'm growing a human. Like that's the
Right.
worst time in pregnancy exhaustion wise. I was like, I'm fucking sleeping. I'm not going, like, I'm not,
Yeah.
no.
Why couldn't he do the customer call?
Exactly. So I think that like a lot of businesses, corporations, they put their employees through tests to see if there is some semblance of loyalty on their side, but then they don't give the same loyalty in return to their employees. They're just kind of a line item. And then when layoffs come, that's it. It's just
Yeah.
you're said goodbye without so many words. So I've been through 3 layoffs in the last 3 years. And so I remember I was talking to someone about it and they were like, that's so much for one person's soul to go through a layoff. And I think the first one hit the most, but I think at this point I'm kind of just like numb to it. And I'm also like, I never want to work for somebody else like that again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've learned so much about through all of these experiences that if you did decide, okay, maybe I want to explore working in an organization again, there are some things you could pay attention to or figure out ahead of time. Not that we can fully understand what we're walking into, but those experiences do give us ideas for red flags, green flags, like what we need to do our due diligence on before we sign up or something new.
Yeah, one of the really good parts of I took a relational trauma certification for coaching a few years ago. And one of the things that I will give clients now is like a red flags list for their interviews if they're interviewing with different employers. Lists is pretty beefy because it also has some of my experiences of just like signals to look out for. But I think that oftentimes when I'm working with clients and even myself is that we realize the red flags kind of retroactively after we leave, but often our bodies know. Like we get like the feeling in the pit of our stomach and then maybe we choose to ignore it or like see like, oh, this really great opportunity after I've been looking for something for so long. And so we overlook it. But my hope with the list is that people are just they run down it and they're like, oh no, like the red flags become very apparent. And then you can kind of make a decision from there as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to almost like looking over it in some ways.
Yeah. It might sound like overkill, but it's really not to have an
No.
actual list. Like
Yeah.
think back to the companies and jobs and situations and people that you've, across the spectrum of I hated this and it was the worst ever to I love this, I would love to do this again. And make your list. And it's not just the list of like here's what to look for because you won't always see those things. They won't always be presented. So you're going to also need to ask some questions to figure out some interesting creative ways to uncover the stuff that isn't so readily presented. Again,
Yeah.
whether it's good or not so good, that can be challenging, but is even more effective way of figuring that out versus just like, let me see what flags I can see on the surface
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that'll be good enough. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about what's next for you, is there anything else that you're going to be incorporating into your career? Any new spaces you're going to be looking to? Are you going to be getting back into science, biology, slide photography anytime soon? I feel like that would be really cool.
So it's really interesting because I did a campus tour of the grads program last week that I'm starting. And part of it, the person was like, "Hey, do you want to see the arts building?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I want to see the art building." So I went through, I saw all the areas with like the studio equipment and all the photos hung up. And I was just having flashbacks to like undergrad. And I came out of that and I was like, man, I miss photography. I really love it. I always did like landscape photography and studio and stuff like that. And it's so crazy, like where photography is now because my phone is better than like my DSLR from what I had in college now. So I hope to do a little bit more of that definitely this year. I take photos with my son and stuff, and he's like him and my cats are like my full camera roll. So I'd
Of
love to see
course.
more nature in there a little bit more. So that'll be a big one. Grad school takes up a lot. Raising a human takes up a lot of time too. But I would say, like, in terms of modalities with my practice, continuing with like mindfulness and somatic work, I'm actually doing some customer research right now for my coaching practice to see like what are people in tech going through. It'll be interesting to see how my offer refines from that. I have a hypothesis, but I won't share it just yet. I have an idea of where it's going to go. But yeah, my program is 2.5 years. There's like a internship component and stuff. And then my goal is to really add counseling as another arm of my business. So I can work with folks in like New England on counseling and then still have people all across the world that I'll be working with in coaching as well. But some of the biggest challenges, problems that I love helping people with is always, I think it's because my background as a adoptee, I talk a lot about identity and work, is helping people sort through those questions about work of like what gives you energy, what about your values, how does it influence you as a person, but then how you are in relation to your team or other people as well. So that's always like a constant, I feel like, throughout the years of what I'm focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you're going to be doing kind of a hybrid business or offering where some folks you'll be able to help in one capacity as a coach with certain topics, and then be able to delve more into this other stuff that's been coming up to some extent in your coaching, but will be better served by a trained professional in that space. And you're going to go get that training and education and be able to offer that. Honestly, I feel like that's the way to go for a lot of us right now, is to do multiple things or diversify what we're doing, but it also keeps it really interesting and we can be creative and explore and learn.
It does, yeah. I've also been looking into like fractional work, like more consulting stuff this year too, especially with being in school for like a certain number of hours per week, like having like a fractional type of project or consulting. It's just, I think like there's been a huge talk about portfolio careers over the last 2 years of like
Hmm.
how do you build this career for yourself, and to be sustainable, I think in the longer term, it's in the same way that you diversify your finances, it's diversifying your business as well. If you put all of your eggs in one basket for one portion of your business, it definitely keeps you more at risk. But at the same time, you don't want to have like 100 different parts of your business. It's consciously building it out in a way that you enjoy, that like gives you energy. You get to be able to use different parts of your brain. Coaching, therapy lets me use more of my embodiment part. My energy is different. Consulting, I get to use like my brain again. So it's very much, it reminds me of when I was a researcher. It's more cognitive heady. So it one thing I'm interested to see kind of what the energy dials and like the pie, where my pie splits in terms of my energy over
Hmm.
this year. So
Yeah. And you can
yeah.
keep experimenting and putting the puzzle pieces together in whatever way makes sense for you moving forward. Yeah, that's so wonderful. I look forward to seeing how all of this unfolds over the coming years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you? I'm going to throw it back to you. You asked me about like things I'll be learning lately. Is there anything for you that like you're hoping to focus on this year? You're excited about learning this year?
Yeah, well, interestingly, I mean, I think a lot of us self-employed people, coaches, are finding ourselves in this situation of responding to the instability in the world, in the economy, with the people who we're used to serving and working with in those communities, and trying to adapt and move forward and support ourselves and live our core values. And I'm asking a lot of the same questions about what's next for me. How do I want to, or how might I diversify what I'm doing in my business? And then as a result, diversify my finances and where the money is coming from to pay the bills. I too have been dabbling back into UX consulting. So I totally understand like the switching gears into something that's very, I don't know, going back to those roots of being a researcher and conducting studies, working on product development and that sort of thing. And that, is exciting to an extent. I don't plan on doing that for forever, or I'd rather focus on coaching. But yeah, I'm going to be making some shifts as well in my coaching audience, the people that I'm working with, just again, as a response to the changes in the market over the past couple of years. So that is my plan moving forward. And it reminds me how I feel about it now, reminds me of what you were saying a little bit ago about finding and grasping onto that energy and momentum and clarity. And once you start to get that, then using that to anchor yourself in and feel more hopeful that you're going to be able to make the change happen. Because yeah, I have felt stuck for a while in figuring out what to do to have a sustainable life, essentially, while also being able to help people, which is one of my favorite things about the job. So, finding that I think is so helpful for having the momentum and the hopefulness you need to move forward and trust yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting because we both talk about the transitions that we've been through, like individually and personally. And we're going through transitions just like our clients are. And one of the things that I really enjoy about being a coach is helping clients through transitions. And then I feel like seeing them get momentum, it like pushes me to do the things that scare me in my own life too. Like I've been like thinking about being a therapist for a long time. And now I'm just like, you know what? If I can help someone take a leap into the unknown, like I want to do it for myself too. Like
Yeah,
keep
absolutely.
unfolding.
Well,
So
sometimes something will speak to us and we'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, set it on the back burner. I mean, we have to there's just stuff in front of us every day that we have to decide on and figure out. And then when we have some space, it kind of reappears and things fall into place for, somehow. So yeah. I'm wondering, just to close out our conversation, do you have any resources, people out in the world, books, podcasts, anything that you would recommend to women out there who are considering a career shift?
yeah, I have a workbook available. It's called Consciously Crafting Your Career Path. We can list it in the show notes. It's available at learnmindfully.co/store. And then the other thing I have a free career clarity journal as well. It has some self-reflection prompts in it. The workbook definitely has more. It's a little bit more intensive. It's definitely focused on transitions. But please reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's thinking about a transition, looking for resources. I have a ton myself available. I have the blog. And then I'm also happy to refer you to other people's resources as well.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. I've learned a lot, things that I didn't know about you before that make you even more of an interesting and robust and awesome person. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for being my host today. How can folks keep in touch with you or reach out to you if they'd like to connect?
Best place is amysantee.com. And I suppose people can keep an eye on my website to see what ends up changing for me moving forward. But yeah, anyone's welcome to get in touch anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy.
All right. Thanks, Roberta.
Thanks for being here. If something in this episode landed with you, feel free to pass it along to someone who might need it too. You can leave a review, subscribe, or just keep tuning in. We're figuring it out together. And remember, Your story, your voice, your becoming. It all matters.